Hi, I'm Marc, and on this channel I talk about Brexit and UK politics and things the government does there. After the Islamist Hamas attack on Israel, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak called a meeting of the National Crisis Team Cobra on Monday. Britain is one of Israel's closest allies, is what Sunak said during a visit to a company in Nottinghamshire. He promised Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that he would continue to provide diplomatic intelligence and security report. And the Conservative politician continued that they would remain in close dialogue with the Israelis. Britain supports Israel in its exercise of the right to self-defense and in taking proportionate measures to end the violence and fertile scenes. That's what a government spokesman emphasized to journalists on Monday as well. He was initially unable to say how London would specifically help Israel. There are currently no plans to move additional military capacity to the region, as the spokesman said. But the USA, Germany, France, Italy and Great Britain want to support Israel, and it is a sign of solidarity. The heads of state and government of leading Western nations announced that they will steadfastly and together help Israel defend itself against these Hamas attacks. US President Joe Biden, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak have issued a joint statement condemning the attacks on Israel by the Islamist militant group Hamas. In the statement they said they support Israel in its efforts to defend itself and its people against such atrocities. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz published a picture of himself and President Emmanuel Macron during the phone call on X, you know that formerly as Twitter. The two met on Tuesday for the Franco-German cabinet meeting. In the joint statement, the five heads of state and government wrote, "We further emphasized that this is not the moment for any anti-Israel group to exploit these attacks to gain an advantage." At the same time, the quintet reiterated that it recognizes the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people and supports justice and freedom for Israelis and Palestinians alike. But at the same time, they affirmed that make no mistake thing. Hamas does not represent these aspirations, and all it offers the Palestinian people is more terror and bloodshed, they said. And in the coming days, they want to act united and coordinated. It should be ensured that Israel is able to defend itself and ultimately create the conditions for a peaceful and integrated Middle East region. All five politicians expressed horror at Hamas' brutal actions in its attacks on Israel, in which hundreds of people died. Following the devastating attacks on Israel by Hamas terrorists, there are increasing signs of an impending Israeli ground offensive in the Gaza Strip when I'm filming this. Israel ordered the complete closure of the area, which is only 40 kilometers long and 6 to 12 kilometers wide, while the army mobilized 300,000 reservists. What Hamas will experience will be hard and terrible. We are only at the beginning, said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and vowed revenge. People in Israel have been told to stock up on enough food, water, and medicine. The military said supplies should last at least 72 hours. But that's the situation where Germany, the USA, Great Britain, France, and Italy jointly assured the attacked country of their solidarity. And they expressed their unwavering and united support for Israel and unequivocally condemn Hamas and its terrible acts of terror. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and I'm picking him because that's where I'm sitting, wrote on Twitter, "Our five countries will ensure that Israel can defend itself and its citizens against these vile attacks." Hamas, meanwhile, threatened to execute a civilian hostage for every attack carried out by Israel, as a spokesman said. They kidnapped around 150 Israeli hostages to the Gaza Strip. These include citizens of several Western countries, including Germans, for example. Israeli army says it took hundreds of Hamas members prisoner. And Hamas, which is classified as a terrorist organization by the EU, the USA and Israel, told the Arabic broadcaster Al Jazeera that the group was open to mediation. But as far as I heard, Egypt, etc. didn't have any success there. The Islamist organization had previously called for a prisoner exchange and the release of 36 imprisoned Palestinian women in Israel in exchange for the handover of older kidnapped Israeli women. At least 900 people were killed and 2,600 people were injured in the attack by Hamas terrorists that began over the weekend. And US President Joe Biden said on Tuesday on Platform X that there were at least 11 American citizens among the dead. The terrorists had entered Israeli towns and shot men, women and children and kidnapped others into the Gaza Strip. According to the Ministry of Health there, at least 687 people were killed and more than 3,800 injured in the massive Israeli counterstrikes in the Gaza Strip. According to unconfirmed media reports, the bodies of around 1,500 Palestinian terrorists are said to be on Israeli territory. Terrorists are currently no longer invading Israel, as an Israeli military spokesman said. For the approximately 2 million mostly poor residents of the extremely densely populated Gaza Strip, the situation is likely to worsen further with Israel's complete closure. And Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said, there will be no electricity, no food, and no fuel. And Germany and the EU and other states announced that they were initially suspending aid to the Palestinian population in view of Hamas terror. The German programs would be reviewed comprehensively and with an open outcome. That was said by a spokeswoman for the Development Ministry in Berlin. And meanwhile, Israel's army continued to attack Palestinian militant targets in the Gaza Strip. The army announced late on Monday evening that the positions were attacked from the air, but also from ships. The military bombed, among other things, weapon depots, tunnels, and a Hamas command center in a mosque. And meanwhile, there were again clashes with deaths in the West Bank. There were also fighting on Israel's northern border with Lebanon, increasing concerns that the conflict could spread. Israeli soldiers shot several gunmen who had advanced into Israel, as the Israeli military said. The Shiite organization Hezbollah, which like Hamas is allied with Iran, denied any involvement there. But the chairwoman of the Defense Committee in the German Bundestag, Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann from the Liberals, called for a tougher approach towards Iran as well. The biggest supporter of Hamas's terror is Iran. That's what she told the German editorial network. And that is why Germany, together with its partners in the European Union and the USA and Britain, must expand the sanctions against the country. Thousands of people took to the streets in London on Monday evening in response to the Islamist Hamas attacks on Israel and the Israeli military's response there. According to the British news agency PA, hundreds of people gathered for a pro-Palestinian demonstration in front of the Israeli embassy in the Kensington district. And according to the news channel Sky News, there were even up to 5,000 people. During the rally, fireworks were lit and Palestinian flags were waved. The participants insulted Israel as a terrorist state. Police said there had been damage to property nearby as well. And meanwhile, around 2,000 people gathered in the government district of Westminster, for a vigil for the victims of the Hamas terrorist attack. The British Parliament was illuminated in the colors of the Israeli flag, and Prime Minister Rishi Sunak attended a Jewish service in North London. And he said, those who support Hamas are entirely responsible for the heinous attack. They are not militants, they are not freedom fighters, they are terrorists. There are no two sides to these events. There is no question of balance. I stand with Israel, Sunak said. Anti-Semitic hatred will not be tolerated in Britain, he assured the Jewish community in Britain. And we had the same pro-Palestinian demonstrations, especially in Duisburg here, and that is something I cannot understand. Of course, there is a discussion about the Palestinian people and the Israeli people and you have to discuss it on a political level in normal times, but terrorism is always completely unacceptable. And what the Hamas is doing there cannot be tolerated. And just to say that as well, any attacks on Jewish people in other countries will not be tolerated as well. I'm quite sure that in the countries where most of my viewers come from and where I come from, the police will do everything to protect our Jewish friends. And you know from the past that I have a lot of criticism for certain governments in Israel. But this is not the time for that. Now it's time to stand with Israel and the attack also there on our Western, I'm even losing my words here at the moment in English, our Western values that are even shown by Israel on a major level, usually, unless the government tries some stupid things. But as I said, that is not the time to talk about it. We must stand with Israel now. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.